Hello, sewing people of the internet. This video is going to be a 1-year long-term review wrap-up of the Singer heavy-duty series of machines. If you've already watched all the videos in this series, there's going to be quite a bit of repetition here, but I think that's valuable because you can see to what extent my opinion has changed and to what extent things have remained constant. If you're new to this series, I got a bunch of videos about this machine, comparing it to some vintage machines and doing some projects with it. It might be helpful to go back and check out some of those for a fuller picture of my opinion on the machine, but this video should give you a pretty good idea. In this video, we're going to go back and take a look at some of my thoughts and predictions going into the evaluation of this machine. I'm going to show you most of the projects that I've sewn with the machine. I'll give you an explanation of why I still think the heavy-duty name can be problematic and tell you how I've actually come to love this machine. So I guess let's start with a quick montage of my early thoughts about the machine and how things progressed as I went through the evaluation process. I can tell you that my bias initially is I don't expect to like this machine. It should be clear pretty quickly, I definitely have a bias, and that bias is against this machine to a great extent. If I come away from this experience liking this machine, no one's going to be more surprised than me. I'm going to make a prediction right now. I predict that this machine is probably okay, and probably will be fine for sewing reasonable things that one should expect it to sew. But what I expect is that the heavy-duty nature of this machine is at least exaggerated. I am open to being wrong, and I'm going to test the machine and see what it can do, and we'll all learn together whether I find it to actually be heavy-duty. I need forward and reverse and zigzag, and that's about it. So I'm probably never going to use the buttonhole feature of this machine. So the result of today's experiment, I would say that machine was the more pleasant one to use and did a better job. I'm going to show you how it went, but I'll tell you right up front, the machine did way better than I might have hoped. And you know, I entered into this experience with this machine with a bias against the machine. I have a strong preference for vintage domestic sewing machines and industrial machines, and I kind of wanted this machine to fall on its face. This was a real pleasure to sew with the machine. I can say based on this one single experience, if you're starting out with sewing and you want to make stuff kind of like this, might not be a bad way to start. If there was ever a machine that I wanted to handily defeat the Singer HD in a head-to-head combat, it was this machine. It did not. But the results I had yesterday was this thing was awesome. Like really, really great at sewing this project. I think this is a really good option for a DIY, make your own gear person, at least as a start. So it should be pretty clear by now, I've really come around on this machine. It's complicated, but I really do like using it. I plan to continue using it. I'm going to say something now. You're right now not listening well, and you're going to mishear what I'm saying, and you're going to use it against me. So that's on you. But let me say this very, very clearly. I bought this machine with my own money. Singer doesn't know that I exist as far as I know. They haven't contacted me, spoken to me, offered me anything. The opinion I have about this machine is entirely mine. What I'm saying is if there were an alternate universe where this happened. Okay, so if Singer had reached out to me and said, hey, we want you to do a long-term review of the machine, we'll give you the machine for a year. And at the end of that year, you can either buy it at the full price that you would have paid for it or send it back, your choice. If that scenario had happened, I would write a check for this machine today. For sure, I would definitely keep it. I'm saying that, I know people are going to not listen and confuse it. I'm just saying that to say that that's the extent to which my adoration of this machine has come around, because I entered into this obviously not thinking I was going to like it. I really like it a lot. That said, I have for 10 years now advocated buying vintage domestic sewing machines, pre-1970 generally, sewing machines as a way to start and as a way to continue sewing in the MYOG, DIY sewing world. I still think that to a great extent. I still think you can buy a capable sewing machine for $20 at a thrift store or a yard sale. Your mom might have one. There's other ways to get into sewing. This is a relatively inexpensive sewing machine for a brand new sewing machine, and a remarkably well-performing one for the price, in my opinion. But you don't have to spend even this much money to get into sewing. And I still think that older sewing machines are better machines. But that's not necessarily the only consideration. So, in terms of comparing this to vintage sewing machines, I would like to present you an analogy. This is not a perfect analogy, and it falls apart at some point, and we have to make some allowances because I can't think of a better analogy than this, and it has some shortcomings. So just stick with me here. Let's say you were offered a choice of one of two cars. You could have a 1968 Camaro or a brand new Hyundai Elantra. Now, one of the allowances we have to make is let's just forget all about investment value, because the 68 Camaro is a much better investment probably in today's market than a brand new Hyundai Elantra. Let's just think about these as conveyances, okay? So you can have a 1968 Camaro or a brand new Hyundai Elantra. Now, I'm going to drill down a little bit farther. Your 1968 Camaro isn't something super special. It's just, a small block, 4-speed, no air conditioning, roll-up windows, pretty typical what you would get in 1968 for a Camaro. I don't know how many of you have driven a 1968 Camaro. I've never driven a 1968 Camaro, but I've had 60s muscle cars in my life, and I've driven a lot of stuff. So maybe I should have picked a car that I've owned, but whatever. So I'd pick the Camaro. Yeah, that would be awesome. Except, wait, this is going to be your only car. You get the Camaro or the Elantra, and either one is going to be your daily driver, your commute to work, your drive on vacation, it's raining, it's hot, etc. I'm probably still leaning towards the Camaro, but it gets pretty hot where I live in Florida. And it also rains when it's hot, and that's really unpleasant when you don't have air conditioning. And a rear-wheel drive V8 powered manual transmission car can be a little problematic in the rain. Sometimes I like to go to Atlanta. That's a full day drive away. It starts to get hard. If you were born in the 1960s, or if you were of driving age in the 1960s, you would do all those things in a 68 Camaro and not think anything of it, because, it was a luxury to have power windows and air conditioning and stuff back then. But in today's world, driving something that austere would become kind of annoying after a while. Once you've had, cruise control and infotainment systems and power everything and heated seats and stuff that even many of the lowest trim models have. Now, going back to something austere like that could be a real challenge. Okay, long story to illustrate the point. The vintage sewing machines are awesome, just like the 68 Camaro. I think a 68 Camaro is a better constructed piece of machinery than a new Hyundai Elantra. Nothing against Hyundai. I've never driven one of those either. But I just think old things were built better in the past than the way we build them now, in terms of the intention for them to last longer at least. So I got a real soft spot in my heart for vintage sewing machines, and I adore using them. And this thing has been easier to use and has done more than I think any of my vintage sewing machines. I mentioned in one of the early clips that I didn't think I would ever use the buttonhole feature. Well, I've used it several times now. I've used stretch stitch. I've never had a machine with stretch stitch before, and never knew I needed it. And now, again, kind of like going back to the Camaro, I'm kind of gotten used to cruise control. Now I don't want to give it up, right? So I guess the point of the analogy is this. There is no reason not to have a vintage sewing machine if that suits your needs and it's to your liking. But there's also not necessarily a reason not to buy something like this, given the caveat that just like a brand new car, it's not going to become worth more as you own it. It's going to become worth less, not worthless, but worth less money. It's not an investment. And it's not made of the same kind of robust materials that older things are made out of, so that you would expect it to last a lifetime and become an heirloom that you would pass on to your children. Unless you just never, even if you never use it, I think the plastic will eventually become embrittled. This is an appliance, and unfortunately, like many appliances in our world today, it's intended to last its useful life and then be replaced when it breaks. I don't love that, but it's the world we live in. So that's my position now. Basically, I still adore vintage sewing machines. I still think that if you're interested in beginning sewing and you've never sewn before, that you should seek out an inexpensive vintage sewing machine to start with. Don't spend a couple of $100 on something you're not even sure if you want to do it. But I think if you are already sewing, or you have a need to sew that you know is worth investing some money in, this might be better in a way, because it is kind of a lot easier to use in some ways, at least while it's new and under warranty. You know, presumably I haven't had any problems with mine to speak of, but if you did, at least it would be under warranty, where no vintage machine is going to be covered by a warranty. I don't know if there's a right answer or a wrong answer as far as buying a vintage machine or buying a new machine, but if you are considering a new machine, I think this one is worth considering. So in support of that idea, let me show you most of the things that I've made with this machine over the last year. I have to add one caveat. Some of these items were mostly made on this machine. Some of them were made partly on this machine and partly on a vintage machine. Anything with binding, I used my industrial cylinder arm machine to do the binding on. Some of these projects I used a walking foot machine to do a few steps here and there. But anything I did on this machine, I could have also done on one of my vintage machines. It didn't do any less than any of those could have done, I guess is the best way to put it. So that said, one of the first projects I did was what I guess I'm going to call a pencil pouch, which is a little simple zip pouch. This is X-Pac VX21, I'm pretty sure. Not a real challenge for any sewing machine to do, but it did a good job on it. It's a functional pouch. One of the more challenging projects that I did was this EDC style pouch that I keep everyday carry items in my backpack. This is 1000D Cordura with a liner of 400D pack cloth. There's some webbing and some elastic and zipper, and it's pretty cool little project. I said in the video on this one that I was going to make another one to replace it because I made so many mistakes on it. Eventually I will, maybe, but I've been using it since I made it, and it's great. I have a weird relationship with the waist pack, hip pack, sling bag, fanny pack, and I say I have a weird relationship with them. I hate the name, and I don't love wearing these things like with street clothes necessarily. I don't wear one, you know, when I'm dressed for work, let's say. But there are many occasions when I find them to be incredibly useful. So for example, if I'm going to the gym and wearing, you know, gym shorts and a workout shirt and then need to go to work, this is a great way to carry my wallet and keys and stuff without, you know, because I usually don't have pockets in the gym shorts or whatever. So this is a pack made out of waxed canvas. It's 10.10 ounce waxed canvas. The front panel is cork fabric. It's also lined with 400D pack cloth. This pack really opened my eyes to the Singer Heavy Duty. It really did a great job making this pouch. I kind of made this just to have a project to make on the machine, and I've ended up using this pack a lot, and it's been great. Another project I made was another running water bottle carrier. I run a lot, and I use these to carry a bicycle bottle while I'm running. And again, I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised, how well the machine did making this project. So this has some spacer mesh, some V21 RS X-Pack material, zipper pocket, some stretch material, and again, I didn't do the binding on the machine, but everything else I did on the machine. Did a great job, and I did a comparison by making another pouch like this on Kenmore, a vintage Kenmore machine, a 1752, I think, and I was pretty surprised that the Kenmore seemed to struggle a little bit more than the HD didn't struggle at all, and I had some really minor issues, but it was definitely easier to make this project on the Singer than it was on the Kenmore. I know some of you are going to hate hearing that. I was very surprised myself. Maybe it's just my Kenmore, maybe it's broken, I don't know. But the Singer did a fantastic job with this. I recently bought a new band for my watch, and it was a little bit too long, so I had to shorten it. It's made out of webbing and has Velcro, and I used the Singer to do that job, and it did great. I also used the Singer Heavy Duty to make a changing poncho for freediving in the springs in North Florida. I wear my wedding band on a lanyard around my neck, and I had to replace the buckle on the lanyard, and it's just paracord. I make these out of paracord, and so that with the Singer Heavy Duty, did a great job on that too. I used the Singer to make a knife roll to carry cooking knives, or I guess steak knives, for when my wife and I are camping. It's another project that the machine did a great job on. And I also used it to make some towel seat covers, just very simple seat covers to put into my truck after I'm paddleboarding or running or something, so I can keep my seats dry. And then recently I made a hydration vest for running. I ran a 50-mile run in the Keys a couple of weeks ago, and I used the Singer Heavy Duty to make the hydration vest and the running shirt and the running shorts that I wore. I have not made clothing prior to using this machine, really. I made this shirt as a test before making the running shirt, and I also made this pair of pants, as well as another pair of pants that I made based on the shorts pattern. So I might be forgetting something, but I made a lot of useful stuff with this machine this year. Really impressed with what it's been able to do. But I guess I want to talk now about my concerns about the heavy duty name. So really nothing in that list of things that I made is particularly heavy duty the way I look at heavy duty. So I own something over 30 sewing machines, and 3 of them are walking foot industrial machines, and I have 2 Sailrite walking foot machines, and then it's a slew of vintage machines, many of which don't work. But when I think heavy duty, I'm thinking, stuff that I pretty much need a walking foot machine for. Maybe need is too strong of a word, but I've struggled through making things with a regular drop feed machine, and I just would rather do it on a walking foot machine and make my life easy. So my concern about the name, and I've said this from the beginning and I still have the same concern. I think someone who is new to sewing or considering taking up the hobby of sewing and wants to sew a military style rucksack out of 1000D Cordura, and there's going to be a bunch of layers and webbing and elastic and zippers and stuff, that's probably a little heavier duty than you want to do on a machine like this. I'm not saying you can't do it at all, but so one example I'll give is I made a gigantic duffel bag for a friend a few years ago. That was a 1000D Cordura bag, and it had inner tube lining the bottom and some really thick seams. It was a little bit complicated of a bag. I struggled to do that on my Conso 206 walking foot industrial machine. There is no way I could do it on this machine. I could do parts of it. I could definitely do some elements of it on this machine. There's no way I could do that bag start to finish on this or any domestic non-walking foot machine. I could probably do it. I think I did do a lot of it on the Sailrite. I don't remember at the moment, but the Sailrite I could get it done on. but just it needs to be a walking foot machine, frankly. So I guess if anyone watching this is thinking that they need a heavy-duty machine because of the things they're going to be doing are very thick, complicated, heavy materials, really think about whether or not this is the right machine, because you may be disappointed. That said, if you want to sew a pouch like this out of 1000 denier cordura, you definitely can. I did. It's no big deal. A lot of people ask, well, can this sew this material X or whatever? Well, yeah, I could sew 1 or 2 layers of it. That's not the same as a backpack. So just, keep in mind that the heavy-duty name on this machine is heavy-duty relative to the lightest-duty machines that they make, but this is still just a plastic-bodied domestic sewing machine. It's very easy to move around. I'll talk about that in a second. So trying to sew a giant, bag of heavy materials, probably not going to go well in this. All right, let's quickly go over some pros and cons. One pro, it's very lightweight. Easy to move around. If you sew it like most people sew at home, maybe on your dining room table or something, you need to move the machine when you're done and put it away. It's very easy to move around. I actually was put off by how lightweight it is when I first got it out of the box, but I found myself being appreciative of it, just moving it around. It's pretty easy. However, that's also a con because, as I alluded to a few moments ago, it is pretty easy to move while you're sewing. So if you're like really getting into something, having to maneuver a lot of fabric, you can move the machine and that can cause problems or just, kind of throw you off. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but I would say for most people it's probably more of a pro than a con. Another pro is this thing's really easy to thread. Most modern machines are, and I don't think vintage machines are difficult to thread, but most of the time you get a vintage machine, it probably didn't come with a manual, and usually you can find a manual online, but not always, and I don't always look, so you do have to do a little bit of figuring out how to thread the machine and stuff. It's not a big deal, but it is almost brainless on this. It's got diagrams on the machine, you just follow it. Very easy to do. So that's kind of nice. When you wind a bobbin, when you engage the bobbin winder, it disengages the sewing mechanism, so you don't have to mess around with a clutch that you have to unscrew and tighten back down again. It's just kind of just easier to use in general. So I would say that's definitely a pro, especially for someone who is new. Another pro that kind of surprised me is, like many modern machines, this has a clear plastic plate over the bobbin, so you can see the bobbin and see it. Often, if you're using the clear plastic bobbins, you can see how much thread remains on the bobbin. I don't think I've run out of bobbin thread yet using it, so maybe that's because of that. You can't see it when you're actually sewing, but just as you're setting up, you kind of look in there and you can say, oh, I'm getting low on bobbin thread. So, like, I'm put off by plastic in general, so seeing these plastic parts didn't give me the warm, fuzzy feeling, but I've been surprised how useful it's been to just be able to quickly look and see, oh, okay, I've got plenty of bobbin thread, keep going. Because my preference is for machines kind of pre-1970, I don't think any of the machines maybe I have a machine that has stretch stitch on it and I just don't know, but I don't think any of my machines have as many stitches as this, and I didn't think I was going to use a bunch of different stitches. I probably still won't use most of them, but I've ended up using the buttonhole on the pants and shorts that I've made, and I've ended up using the stretch stitch when I made t-shirts. So it's nice to have that capability that I would not have had if I did not have this machine or something equal to it. And in terms of the argument of buying this over a vintage machine, I guess one pro that I can't overlook is if you decide today, I want to buy a Singer 201, well, maybe you can, and maybe there will be one on your local Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or Kijiji or whatever, but maybe not, or maybe it'll be not in the condition you want, or maybe it'll be too expensive or a little bit too far away or whatever. You can order this anytime you want. You can probably buy it locally if you live in a reasonable sized city. You get started right away. I mean, at worst, you have to wait a few days for it to get shipped to you. So That is a pretty distinct advantage. I've hunted for particular vintage sewing machines that I've wanted over the years. Always had other machines that didn't matter, but, sometimes it takes a while. I'm still looking for the right Neki BU Mira to pop into my life. It hasn't happened, so just the fact that you can just buy this anytime you want to is actually kind of an advantage. So my opinion, obviously, is I really like this machine way more than I thought I was going to. I would definitely say if you are a new seamster and you're looking to make some utility items, you're not ready to buy an industrial machine, and you want something you can sew with today, and you're willing to spend $230-ish, depending on which model you get, yeah, get it. Maybe I got a great one and the one you buy is going to break immediately. I have no idea. But my experience with this machine has been overwhelmingly positive. So the only problem that I can recall having had with the machine was finding that the needle bar wasn't perfectly centered. I think one of you told me how to find the information to adjust it. And I have looked all through comments and emails and I can't find it. So thank you, whoever you were. I'm sorry that I don't remember. But it was really easy to do. I also don't remember where I got the information, but I was able to find a service manual. Google it, I guess. But it's literally just, there's a screw in here you have to adjust. It was not a big deal at all. It would be nice if it was perfect. Being a brand new machine, I think that was just something that it was probably like that from the day I got it. I just never noticed it. So, and it probably would have continued to work fine even though I didn't adjust it. But it was easy to adjust, but that was a thing. So other than that, the machine has been flawless. Okay, it's been a year. I've done a lot with this machine. I didn't do everything I hoped I might do. I was planning on trying to make a backpack with the machine, and I didn't, and I don't know if I ever will, and if I do, I don't know when it would be. I feel pretty confident saying that I've done the most thorough evaluation of the Singer Heavy Duty series of machines to the extent that I can, because there's computerized ones and stuff, but the ones that we all kind of gravitate towards, I think this is the most thorough evaluation anybody's done. If you know of another one, then put a comment up and tell people where to check it out, because they definitely should. So I think I've done what I can do here. So you might wonder, well, what's going to happen with this machine? Well, what's going to happen is I'm going to keep using it because I really like it. I don't know that I will be intentionally finding reasons to use it to make videos about it. I might, but you can expect to see it still getting used from time to time. If something ever does break on it and makes it completely broken and useless especially, I will definitely let you know. Hopefully that won't be for a while. I think I said in a previous video that if I got 5 years out of it, I would feel like it was a good purchase. And I don't remember if I said 5 years or some other number, but that sounds reasonable to me. It's been a year now. That's cool. 2 years, I might still be a little like, that's a lot of money for 2 years of use. But if I get 4 or 5 years out of it, using it the way I've been using it, if it broke, I would just go buy another one. So so I'm going to keep using the machine. I am a convert. My initial hesitance to recommend this machine seems to have been incorrect, and I stand corrected. Still have the caveat about the name. I still urge you, if you really need heavy duty, think about whether or not this really means the kind of heavy duty that you mean, because mine says not that heavy duty now, and I still think that's correct. Maybe medium duty would be a good name for this machine. So, but if you just want to make some stuff and a domestic machine is appropriate for what you want to make, and you like the idea of a new machine, I say go for it. The one question I still haven't answered, and I'm just probably not going to answer, is whether or not any of the other Singer sewing machines that aren't in the heavy duty series would work just as well. My suspicion is probably 95% of the time they'd work just as well. This does have a slightly more powerful motor. I don't know how much more powerful. I don't know how much of a difference that would make. But you could probably save a few bucks and get a pink one or something. But if you need one and you like the way these look, oh, they have one in black now, by the way. then, you know, this is a fine machine. I've talked about this in other videos. People have asked if I can compare this to the Brother Tough and Strong, or Strong and Tough, or whatever it is, or the Janome HD something, HD 100 maybe. And until somebody starts buying sewing machines for me, that's unlikely to happen. My guess is they're probably also pretty good for the kind of stuff that I did with this machine. So, you know, you probably could just go for it. But I'm happy with this one. If you're thinking about it, I say yes. I sincerely hope that you found something about this video and this series helpful. If you like what I'm doing here, clicking like is always a nice thing to do. If you're not a subscriber, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. There's a bunch of links in the description. Some of those links are affiliate links, and you'll make me very rich if you just go buy a piece of fabric or something off Amazon. Thank you so much for being part of the channel. I'll see you soon.
Well, I've caught twice as many plastic bags as I have fish. That's disappointing.